The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NFL Big 3 in 30. The 3 biggest stories in the NFL from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NFL Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in the NFL.
The long-awaited contract extension for quarterback Geno Smith has finally arrived.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast.
It might have taken a while. We anticipated it for a long time, right? The Raiders made the trade for Geno Smith, the third-round pick going to Seattle. Geno Smith coming to the Raiders. They made that official on March 13th. And, well, I mean, it took till April 3rd until the contract extension was actually announced by Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport, and others. Matter of fact, Schefter put out a few tweets. Quarterback Geno Smith signing a 2-year, $85.5 million extension that includes $66.5 million in guaranteed money with the Raiders. Smith is now under contract with the Raiders through the 2027 season. And to be clear, it's a 2-year, $75 million extension worth $85.5 million for Geno, who cashes in Las Vegas. So the incentives can make it up to $85.5 million. And then if you want to take a little bit deeper dive into all the money that Geno's going to make, including the year contract that he came to the Raiders with, that gives his total $116.5 million for 3 years with the 2025 salary included in that. And the base value of the extension for the Raiders on that $75 million, that 2-year, $75 million extension is will make Smith's deal $106 million for 3 years, gives you $35.3 million annually. That slides him in 17th overall, right? There's 32 starting quarterbacks in the league. Geno Smith is slotted in at 17th. I saw people overreacting when the extension was announced before the numbers was out. It's like, oh, right, great. The Raiders about to pay top 5 money. No. He's right where he probably should be, 17th. He's between Derek Carr, $37.5 million a year, and Sam Darnold, $33.5 million per year. That's according to overthecap.com. Very team-friendly. Very Geno Smith-friendly. It's very rare that a deal could be both. But it is. It's good money, $66.5 million guaranteed for Geno Smith. And, the guaranteed money is really all that matters at the end of the day. He didn't break the bank, but he's also not pinching pennies, right? I mean, he's still got some pretty decent coin, knowing that the guy is going to be a bridge quarterback, knowing at some stage of the game there's going to be a franchise quarterback in there. It's not going to be Geno Smith, but also he's a competent quarterback. I just really like the move for a lot of different reasons, including the fact that it leaves the Raiders still wide open, like some old school TV antennas, to do whatever they want to do in the upcoming draft, right? I mean, just similar to what happened when they traded for Geno Smith. And I said, well, now it doesn't make them desperate, and they can go and they can pick whoever they want at number 6, whether that's a quarterback, a running back, an offensive lineman, a defensive lineman, right, a cornerback, whatever. It's wide open, right? Whatever they wanted to do at number 6, they can do since they acquired Geno Smith. They didn't have to be desperate and go get a quarterback. Well, after this extension, we've been talking about what's the structure going to look like? How much money is it going to be? How tight are they going to be to him? Without seeing the actual when they can get out of the deal and how front-loaded it is or how back-loaded it is, without seeing that, but just looking at the numbers, I mean, a 3-year deal, that's basically what he's got, 3-year deal. You can move that anytime you want. You can move that after 1 year if you have a rookie and you're ready to play him. So whatever they wanted to do heading into the draft, even after this extension is announced, they still can do. That's what I think. That's what I love about this deal. And on top of that, that's what I love about the moves that the Raiders have made so far under John Spytek, the GM, and Pete Carroll, the head coach. They haven't pigeonholed themselves. They haven't got themselves in a jam, right? They haven't had to back themselves into a corner and try to fight their way out. They haven't had to do that. I mean, think about it. They extended Max Crosby before any other edge rusher got extended. Remember, he was the highest paid non-quarterback in the league in NFL history for 4 days? And then Myles Garrett signed a deal that went from, Max making $35 a year to Myles getting $40. And now Micah Parsons is going to make more than that. Well, the Raiders got out in front of it. We're going to get our guy first and take care of that business. So they did that. That was smart. They made the trade for Geno Smith, so they didn't get stuck with Sam Darnold. They didn't get stuck with Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, Aaron Rodgers. You name it, they didn't get stuck with that guy, right? They already had a guy that they felt comfortable with. Right. And they just have made a bunch of really good moves. They didn't pay these guys that were free agents for the team, their own guys. They didn't pay them a ton of money like you saw other organizations do, which is going to set the Raiders up for compensatory picks, coming up next year. Like, they've just made a series of really good decisions as far as I'm concerned. Now, does that translate into 10 wins next year? I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying we talk about adults in the room. It feels like for the first time in a long time, the Raiders have adults in the room making adult-like decisions. That's just my opinion on the deal. Again, I think it's a really good deal for Geno and really a good deal for the Silver and Black. Does not stop them from doing anything that they want to do. ESPN, Mina Kimes, NFL insider, NFL. She's fantastic at what she does, covers the Seahawks. She's a big fan of the Seahawks, knows all things Geno Smith, knows all things Pete Carroll. I actually caught up with her at the Radio Row leading into the Super Bowl. She was on NFL Live on Thursday talking about the Geno Smith deal.
I think this is a great deal for the Raiders. When you look at the extension, you added on to his existing contract. You're looking at 3 years, under $40 million a year. That is outside the top 15 for quarterback salaries in terms of annual average per year. I think that's a bargain. I've talked a lot about Geno Smith and what he brings to the table. Last year was a down year from a production standpoint, but if you dig a little deep into the numbers, a couple of stats I think that are pertinent to Raiders fans. Again, only in 2024, Geno Smith was second league-wide behind Joe Burrow in on-target percentage and fourth in completions percentage over expected. What that shows, I believe, is that in some pretty adverse circumstances in Seattle in terms of the pressure and the lack of run-pass balance in that offense, he was, above all, an accurate thrower of the football. It is not surprising to me that in addition to Pete Carroll wanting to reunite him with him, Tom Brady saw that and liked it and probably 100% signed off on this deal. I think they still have to continue adding to the offense. Well, I suspect in the first round, they will add a skill player, but I believe they've got a lot to work with, and I'm optimistic for Geno Smith this year.
So there's Mina Kimes giving her thoughts on the Geno Smith deal, and you hear what she had to say. You know, Raider fans should be excited about this, and she's excited for Geno, but also the fact that that's a very good deal for the Silver and Black. That's not a deal. Again, I was surprised when I saw the numbers. I've been looking at anywhere between 40 and 45. Thought it was going to be a $100 million deal, 80 to 85 million fully guaranteed. No, 66 and a half fully guaranteed. Not even a $100 million deal, not a 4-year deal, a 2-year extension. They did really well as far as I'm concerned. Also, on Thursday, we found out about the Raiders' offseason workout dates. The whole league announced their offseason workout dates, but, obviously what we care about is the Raiders, and Pete Carroll, being in his first year with the Raiders, gets to start his workouts a little bit early. Matter of fact, next week, April 8th, that's the first day for offseason workout dates. That is next week, Raider Nation. That is incredible. Voluntary minicamp, April 21st and 23rd. Obviously, the draft gets started first day on the 24th. There will be a voluntary minicamp 2 days before the draft gets started. OTA offseason workouts May 19th, May 21st through 22nd, May 27th, May 29th through 30th, and June 2nd through June 5th. Those are the OTA offseason workouts. And what matters the most? Mandatory minicamp. That's going to be June 10th through 12th, and then they'll break for the summer, and then they'll report back for training camp. Yeah, it's already that time. It is already that time. It is incredible that it happens that quickly. So those are the dates that you need to know. Sometime next week, not only will they get their first workout in, they'll also introduce Geno Smith. Maybe it's all on the same day on April 8th. They'll introduce Geno Smith to the media, and we'll get an opportunity to finally catch up with the Raiders QB.
There's nothing like the energy of an MLS match, the chance, the atmosphere, the last minute goals. If you want to experience it all live, Gametime makes getting tickets easier than ever. With last minute deals, all in prices, and a low price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying MLS or any other tickets. Plus, ticket prices actually drop as kickoff gets closer, so you can score amazing seats at a great price. I just checked the Gametime app, and there are incredible deals for this weekend's match, cheaper than I expected. You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime.
The Dallas Cowboys have made a massive move at the quarterback position.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast.
We need to talk about this big move that the Cowboys made on Thursday, acquiring Joe Milton from the New England Patriots. It's not out of nowhere, because we actually talked about this, was it last week, about how the Cowboys could be making a move for a backup quarterback, and Milton was the name that we threw around. But now that it's happened, Landon, what are your thoughts?
I love it. Just simply because it's a low cost, investment on a guy that, probably is, if you're going to stack all the quarterbacks, including, who's available for this sort of trade and the, available draftable quarterbacks coming out in this class, I would probably put Joe Milton, a stack above all the other guys that I could get at, with a 5th round pick. That's for sure. And considering the fact that it wasn't even a 5th round pick, it was ultimately a pick swap, right? Like, between their 7th, the Cowboys 5th and the New England Patriots 7th. So you drop back about, I think was 75 picks.
No, not even. It's 46 spots they dropped.
46 picks. Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, you drop back just over a round, right? A round and a half. And you basically get a guy who has a lot of athletic upside. He had an incredible game against the Buffalo in Week 18 in a meaningless kind of game, but still, really highly graded, really well. I mean, if you go and watch the game, there's a lot in that that you see him do that's exciting. It's worth watching. But this is a guy, that I mean, if you don't remember him coming out of University of Tennessee, he was originally a recruit at Michigan, a very highly recruited quarterback. He transfers to Tennessee, and if anybody knows anything about the University of Tennessee, is that they have a very bizarre offense, and it's an offense that it's hard to evaluate players out of, especially quarterbacks, because of the nature of the way that the offense is designed. It certainly is not a one-for-one translation to the NFL. It's probably the most college, wacko offense you'll see. Think, Baylor in the early 2010s. It's like that's kind of the kind of offense we're talking about, right? Art Briles type thing. So so it was a very tough evaluation for him coming out because of the offense. He clearly has incredible traits. Like, he's big, and by big I mean he's enormously big. He's 6'5 plus, 240 pounds. I don't remember what his athletic testing was off the top of my head, but I mean, you could tell on tape that the guy.
I got it.
Yeah, let's hear
it. 6'5 and a quarter, 235, 80-inch wingspan. Not that wingspan matters for a quarterback.
That's crazy.
There you go. 10 and a quarter inch hands, so big hands. 35-inch vertical, a 121 broad. He didn't run the 40 at the NFL Combine, but the numbers that we had, like springtime numbers, were like 4.49, 4.51.
Yeah, he looks like a 4.5 athlete, right? And he just looks enormous, right? Like he's just like you just laid it out. It's not just that he's 6'5", but his hands, his arm width is he's huge. Wingspan is the word I was looking for. Sorry. So he's just a very big human being who moves very well. Now, the aspects of quarterbacking is obviously where we have some of the issues, right? He has kind of inconsistent accuracy. I think it stems from a lack of consistency in his footwork and mechanics in general. I do think that, the difference and I'm not just talking about the stats, the difference in what you saw on tape at Tennessee versus what you saw on tape in Week 18 in New England was improvement, and some pretty serious improvement. And again, I understand all the context. It's a meaningless Week 18 game. Buffalo was already in the playoffs. New England was already out of the playoffs. Nobody was really trying to win anything. But even then, like, you just physically watch what he's able to do. He's able to navigate a pocket. He's able to buy himself time. And he was able to get throws off even while being hit. He's kind of seemingly shortened his delivery. So he's getting the ball off a little bit quicker than what you saw at Tennessee. I just see look, it's easy to kind of write off, this a small sample size and basically a preseason game being played in the regular season. But I think if you actually put on the tape and watch him, there are a lot of things about this guy that really make you excited about being able to kind of develop with him.
Yeah. And he doesn't cost them anything. I'm looking at the money right now. So it's 3 years with a total of $3.05 million is what Dallas is going to be paying him.
It's great.
I mean, you can't get a quarterback in free agency under less than that, right? Like, I think if the Cowboys were to sign a vet minimum quarterback, let's say it's like a Joe Flacco type, I believe his vet minimum would be like $2.8 million for 1 year. you're paying Milton basically that over 3 years, right? So not that you're trying to save money here, but you're also paying nothing on the salary cap, which is really nice when you're paying another quarterback $60 million on your roster. It feels like they're going to go into the season with Dak, Will Grier, and Joe Milton. And I would have to assume that Grier is probably going to be the primary backup, right? With Milton being the third quarterback. But I don't think that's set in stone though either.
Yeah. I would imagine that they go in and have a competition and just see how, Milton takes to the offense. And that Grier kind of represents the floor, right? For that backup quarterback situation. To your point, it's not about just going cheap, right? It's about getting the even if you went the other route and you paid a little bit more to go get the veteran quarterback, you wouldn't get any upside, right? Like there's no upside to Joe Flacco. His upside's already gone, right? With Milton, you bring him in, you've got him under contract control for 3 years, right? It's cheap. And if he isn't the guy that comes in if Dak gets hurt in a game or something, frankly, no loss. It's not. This isn't the same as the Trey Lance deal, right? You didn't trade a 4th round pick for this. You traded basically the equivalent of a 6th round pick for this, probably.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think it's a low cost option. Tons of upside there. If it doesn't work out, it's you've insured yourself with Will Grier, and by not paying a lot of money, that it's okay to kind of let this whole situation go. But this is an upside play.
So we knew that Dallas was interested in drafting a quarterback in this year's class, and they've got a bunch of day 3 picks. So it's not entirely impossible that they could spend one more, although I kind of doubt it. But my thing is with them, they have a 3rd round pick, which I don't think they were ever going to spend a 3rd round pick on a quarterback. I just don't.
No.
And then they had their next pick was in the 5th round. The quarterback difference between the 3rd and 5th, I think, would have been pretty massive. If you're looking at the consensus board now, here are like the quarterbacks that are expected to be available when they're on the clock in the 5th round. It's Dylan Gabriel, Brady Cook, who is the quarterback responsible for tanking Luther Burden's draft value at Missouri. There's Curtis Rourke. There's Riley Leonard, Graham Mertz, who bounced around like nothing. Like there's nothing going to be available. And even someone like Dylan Gabriel, who we like quite a bit, I wouldn't be shocked if he goes undrafted because he's like a 5'10" quarterback with not a lot of arm strength. You just were never going to get a quarterback on day 3 that had anywhere near the talent and upside as Joe Milton. That's why it's really hard to be upset about it.
Yeah. And I mean, maybe it would be possible, but it would be such a needle to thread. It's like,
it's not worth the risk.
Yeah. It's not worth the risk. And it'd be such a gamble to like hope that, one of these guys who are probably going to go top 90 at the end of the day, honestly.
Yeah, like who is even the guy that you're drafting that if they
who are you hoping? Who are you even hoping?
That's the thing. Who are you hoping for? Is it
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. I like Will Howard quite a bit. Like I think he's maybe better than what the consensus says. Will Howard doesn't have anywhere near the upside that Joe Milton has, right? Like if you ask me to pick between them, I'd just take Milton as a backup because the ceiling's so much higher. And that's what you're hoping falls to you in round 5. Hoping.
Yeah. And I think this way you get exactly what exactly what you're getting. I just think you have better control over the situation, and you still get all the upside of it being a draft pick. The only difference is that you're down 1 year, right? Your contract is 1 less year. Other than that, like, I mean, this makes a ton
3 years
of sense.
though. That's an eternity in the NFL,
Absolutely. For
Yeah.
sure.
Ever check your bank account and wonder where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place so you stop just managing your money and you can start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year.
Extensions are a top priority here for the Denver Broncos, but not until the NFL draft.
Out of all the contract extension available players in 2025 for the Denver Broncos, it's hard to choose who's the most important. But you know what? I think we can maybe make a pecking order together here on today's episode, Locked On Broncos. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to tell you which extension is the most important and what order of operations the Broncos need to go in. But Broncos country, thanks so much for making this your first listen of the day every single day. You know that your boys, Cody and Sayre, we got you covered all off season long. Anything that happens with the Denver Broncos, we will have a reaction. We'll have a show to cover those moves. And really, as we approach the NFL draft, you're going to want to be subscribed to this channel because you don't want to miss a single episode or anything that goes on with your favorite team. Cody, let's talk about the priorities in terms of the extensions. We kind of have our opinion of which one is going to get done first. I think the Broncos are experts right now at operating in secret. Sean Payton is assembling his coaching staff basically behind the scenes without anyone knowing about it. They did an entire private workout last year with Bo Nix without anybody knowing about it till after the fact. They do a lot of stuff without anybody knowing about it. So the fact that we do know a little bit about Courtland Sutton and his contract extension at least leads me to believe that's going to be the first one to get done. But does that necessarily mean it's the most important? Like, what's your perspective on this? Because we're talking about guys like Courtland Sutton, who's your current wide receiver one. We're talking about Zach Allen, an all-pro D lineman. John Franklin Myers, who probably should have been in the Pro Bowl or at least in that discussion, right? And then Nick Bonito, who was in the Defensive Player of the Year discussion off the edge as well, who could be that Batman that we talked about so often last year. These are not small deals. This is not a, and I'm using this as an example. That's not to say it's a small deal, but DJ Jones getting the deal that he got for, 3 years and $13 million a year, $26 million guaranteed. That is going to pale in comparison to the deals that we're talking about here.
Yeah, these ones are going to be big ones. And obviously these are going to have a lot of roster shuffling in a sense. Like, what does it look like 2, 3, 4 years down the road at certain position groups when you're factoring this in? And I think a lot of it right now is we've got Bo Nix on a rookie contract before we have to look at extending him down the road here. That's what the Broncos are thinking. So where can we best maximize that? Well, I think you and I have talked about it. Keeping his number one target in the mix, I think, is probably priority number one, right? Courtland Sutton brings tremendous value to the Broncos. And that's not to diminish or say that Nick Bonito, Zach Allen, John Franklin Myers don't. Those guys have significant value to this team. But what's going to help the Broncos jump to the next level, Sayre? I think it's the offense. Like, they were a top 10 scoring offense in 2024. This is the first time they've been, I think, a top 10 scoring offense, I think, since 2014? I think that was the last time where that was the case. So it has been a while since they've been in that conversation, that category. And we know the offense has to improve more, but keeping Bo Nix's glue guys around him, I think, is important. That's why I think Courtland Sutton, I think his will probably be the easier deal out of all the other ones to maybe come to terms with. I think maybe John Franklin Myers will be an easy one for the Broncos to kind of get the framework for that. But I think Courtland Sutton, look, it speaks volumes. The last 2 years, 18 touchdowns. He's been reliable. He's been available. He's been the top target on third down situations here, not only for Russell Wilson in 2023, but for Bo Nix in 2024. And it's clear that those guys have a great rapport together. Courtland, Marvin Mims, Bo Nix, they're going to get together next week and also before the NFL draft, and they're going to throw. And I think that's important, is that you keep your guy there. And the fact that Courtland is going to be showing up to voluntary workouts, I think, is a sign of good faith. And I think that kind of means, Sayre, like, if we're going to read the tea leaves a little bit, maybe he has confidence. Hey, I know this is going to get done. I know that they've probably had those conversations behind closed doors. Like, we're going to find a way to do it. I'm curious to see what the incentives would look like in that deal here. Obviously, for Courtland doing what he's done the last couple of years, I'm sure there's going to be some front-loaded stuff in there as well for him. So for me, I think Courtland is important, but Zach Allen, in my opinion, right now, probably is going to be the most important overall contract extension to get done, because, Sayre, when you look at what he was able to do last season, the value, I mean, you even turn on the tape, it doesn't, like, you look at the numbers, you're like, wow, that's incredible. But you turn on the tape and you watch him. I mean, this is a guy who's consistently beating double teams. He's also manhandling his one-on-one. Zach Allen, he had 8.5 sacks last season. He had 47 pressures, 40 quarterback hits. I mean, Sayre, in a vacuum, when you look at that, it's like, wow, that guy's a workhorse. And he also is a guy that literally has to be pulled off the field by the team. Like, he'll never come out. He'll play 100% of the snaps defensively as a 3-down lineman if you let him. Like, this is a guy I think you have to take care of. And obviously I think he's probably going to be the most overall important to the team here.
I think so too. I think his extension is the most important right now because of the fact that he plays a premium position and he's probably going to get the highest average annual value out of any of the players that we're talking about here. And I think that includes Nick Bonito right now, which, I mean, you could maybe say that they're going to be comparable in what they end up getting average annual value. Milton Williams of the New England Patriots now, Cody, he just signed a free agent deal worth $26 million average annual value over 4 years, which is a lot. It's a lot to pay for a defensive lineman, but Zach Allen is 27 going on 28. This is going to be the biggest contract that he likely gets in his entire NFL career. And I say that, you know, with all due respect, like once you get into your 30s, you just don't get the same types of contracts as you do in your mid to late 20s. So this is going to be the biggest contract that he gets as an NFL player, and he's going to make it count. And rightfully so. I mean, he was second team All-Pro, and he should have probably been first team All-Pro with the way that he played last season. And so I think he's probably going to get upwards of 26, 27 million average annual value on a new contract. And we see Milton Williams got 63 million in guaranteed money. I expect Zach Allen to surpass that. And like you mentioned earlier, that will likely lower his cap hit in 2025. I don't know how much the Broncos are going to fudge without all that stuff, because his cap is going to take up a significant percentage. His charge is going to, whenever he does sign this deal over the next 2 years, and you likely do want to have that as low as possible. But Cody, I expect him to the price that he commands of guaranteed money and average annual value to reflect what's most important. The most confusing one to me is Nick Bonito right now. I don't know where to pencil him in or where to slot him in, because you mentioned Myles Garrett and Max Crosby. Those two guys kind of mess with the market a little bit.
No, they really screwed the market up. But like, this is also, I mean, how did the Broncos, how does Nick Bonito's agent, like, how does that triangle of the negotiating process, how does that work right now? Because Nick Bonito is more of that stand-up outside linebacker who's obviously agile enough to drop back. I mean, he dropped back into coverage a handful of times. He had a pick six, a fumble six, whatever you want to call it. Like, this is a guy who was disruptive in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation. That's going to account for a lot in this discussion. But when you look at Max Crosby, you look at Myles Garrett and the way that they play and the defensive schemes in which they play in, it's drastically different than Denver's, right? Those guys are hands in the dirt. They move around. They do a lot of different stuff. So for me, it's like, how does it impact Nick? Does that benefit Nick, or does that hurt him? I think right now, I think it hurts Nick. And, you know, Nick's not going to go out there and get $40 million, you know, per year for his position there. If anything, I think it's maybe around 22.5 to 23.4. I mean, something along those lines. Whereas I think Zach Allen will probably be in that $25 million per year range. This is the one that's the hardest to decipher right now, because we don't know what the parameters of this contract look like in comparison to some of the other positions here. So I'll be very curious to see how the Broncos, George Paton, Rich Hurtado, and obviously Nick Bonito and his agent work through this, because this is going to be probably the most tricky one that I imagine is probably going to take a little bit more time to put together than a John Franklin Myers or a Zach Allen or a Courtland Sutton one. But I do think that all of these, at least three of these four, will get done here at some point here in 2025, or maybe even going into next year.